Hello, Internet. Let's get right to it. As when you think about in-house performance teams, I'm sure a couple of names come to mind, like TRD or GM Performance or maybe Nismo. Though recently it seems like most of these teams really haven't been getting that much done, especially when you compare it to the guys over at Mopar, who recently had hundreds of aftermarket parts ready to go for the new Jeep Gladiator before the vehicle even launched. And recently, we got our first look at the 2019 Ram 2500 HD and 3500 and 4500 and 5500 cab models. And to go along with all this Ram exposure, Mopar is once again on the scene with a ton of new parts, some of which include fender flares, roll bars, new grills, steel door handles, bed extenders, bed liners, bed steps, toolboxes, and even a cargo ramp. There's also a ton of new towing accessories like trailer cameras, gooseneck hitches, and interior bits like rubber floor mats and locking metal consoles. Long story short, if you have a new Ram pickup starting this week, Mopar has about 170 new ways to separate you from your money. And in a little bit more Ram truck news, the brand also announced a new option for the 2019 Ram pickups that will be available after the second quarter of this year, essentially a 2019.5. Anyway, that's the new multi-function tailgate. Kind of a weird name, but the new tailgate will fold down like any normal tailgate, but will also have a barn door style 60/40 split, which Dodge says will help with things like access to the bed when hauling a trailer, forklift loading, or cleaning. And I'm actually kind of surprised no one's thought of this before now, or at least implemented it. Though, now that it's a thing, I would expect to see other brands start to copy it if it gets popular. And since we're talking about Dodge, it only makes sense to spend a little time talking about the Charger, whose success has played a large part in keeping Dodge relevant in the last decade or so. And when you think about it, the success of the Charger is even more impressive given that it's actually based on a Mercedes platform developed in the early 90s, and that the current generation Charger actually began a whopping 13 years ago in 2006. Well, there's word from a pretty reliable source at Mopar Insider that essentially says that there will be a refresh car in 2020, and that the SRT variant of the vehicle will get a widebody treatment similar to what the Dodge Challenger got with the new Demon. Though, I doubt the reason for this would actually be to make what's essentially a drag car out of the Charger, as they already did that with the Demon. Of course, a wider stance could potentially help with things like track times and stuff, but I'm assuming that they're really just doing it because it looks good and it'll sell, which is actually a pretty common business model. And that also got me thinking that since Dodge is going to have two cars that now ship out with what used to be extensive modifications that are now supplied by the manufacturer, how long before other car companies pick up on the idea and we start seeing something like a next generation BRZ that comes with a standard model or a more expensive wide-body variant? Though BRZWB is a whole lot of letters to spit out at once. Oh, and since the new Charger is expected to show up in 2020, smart money would be on seeing this car make its debut sometime this year. Since we've been talking about trucks, let's talk about the new Areo X bed covers, which first made an appearance at SEMA last year, but have since been gaining in popularity in the internet's truck enthusiast community. They're actually produced by a small Michigan-based company known as Michigan Vehicle Solutions, and are inspired by the 1969 Mustang Mach 1 Fastback, and they'll fit on any 2015 and up Ford F-150. And much like Dodge wide-bodying everything, I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen this before, or at least not in an amount that you might expect given the size of the pickup aftermarket here in North America. Anyway, love it or hate it, since SEMA, the buzz around these things has picked up so much that we know that the company has even had some talks with Ford about offering them as official aftermarket parts that could be supplied and installed at dealerships. Though, it appears the main issue right now is production, as MBS currently hand makes the covers at a pace of about 10 per week. By the way, since 2015, Ford has sold a whopping 3.4 million F-150s in the US, with over 909,000 of those being sold in 2018 alone, which translates to about 17.4 thousand units a week last year, versus about 10 per week of the new bed caps. Production problems and polarizing opinions aside, though, my money's on these things only getting more popular, especially once Dodge and GM hear that Ford may potentially have something they don't. Though I do kind of like them, as they sort of give the truck a Humvee or maybe a Baja truck kind of look. And yeah, it's not really as practical, but Most people who daily drive a pickup truck nowadays don't drive them because they're practical. So, at least for now, if you have a newer F-150 and feel like getting in line for one of these, you just need to make a quick trip to Michigan and be prepared to part with just under $4,000. And in what I promise will be the last truck-related story this week, it appears that the upcoming Chicago Auto Show will see the debut of a new, more extreme Toyota off-roader, though they didn't actually say what vehicle it would be. But let's use some deductive reasoning, as we know that TRD Pro versions of the 4Runner, the Tacoma, and the Tundra are already a thing. And I think it's a safe bet to rule out the Prius. So, it leaves the only two likely candidates as the Sequoia or the Land Cruiser. And my money's on the Land Cruiser. It's anyone's guess, really. And on this channel so far, I've discussed with you the resurrection of the Lagonda nameplate, and also what to expect from upcoming auto shows, among other things. But this week, those two things overlap, as Aston Martin's Lagonda brand dropped this teaser on Wednesday of this week to go ahead and build up a little hype for next month's Geneva Motor Show. The teaser shows the front end of an electric SUV made by the Welsh, also known as Lagonda's new all-terrain concept, which is a performance-oriented luxury SUV made to take on things like the Bentley Bentayga or the Rolls-Royce Cullinan. Not much is known about the specs so far, but Aston Martin officials have said some things about 400-mile ranges and a 15-minute charge time. Also, don't let the concept part of the name fool you, as this thing's definitely going into production. At this point, they're likely just looking for feedback and fixing bugs before they get ready for production that begins in 2021. And what's better than one new car from a once-defunct brand? Two, as 2021 will also see the arrival of the Lagonda Vision sedan concept that the brand showed off at last year's Geneva show. It does have a really nice profile, though. Mazda also dropped a teaser for a new compact SUV making its way to Geneva, but I only have so much time, and I feel like most people out there would probably want to hear about that as much as they want to hear about Seinfeld selling a fake Porsche. It's a complicated process, people, but I do it for you. Anyway, blah blah blah. It's been a slow week, and that's going to wrap everything up. But no doubt we'll have some cool stuff to talk about soon, as Chicago's about to kick off. We've got some other stuff on the way too, but that's for later. Anyways, come back and see me. Thanks for watching. I'm out.